Hello, today I'm going over light-dependent reactions in detail lecture. So we've talked about photosynthesis and just the general outcomes of photosynthesis, what it's for, but now we're getting deeper into the actual mechanics of it. The light-dependent reactions are one half of the whole process. So of taking light from the sun or energy from the sun and eventually putting that energy into a sugar. Okay, the light-dependent reactions are the first stage of photosynthesis and take place in and across the thylakoid membrane of the chloroplast. So remember, this bean-looking thing is the chloroplast. It's an organelle in the cells of plants. During these reactions, sunlight energy is captured and changed into chemical energy. So we go from light energy to chemical energy. That energy is going to be put into the bonds of the sugar over here. The chemical energy is stored in the molecules ATP and NADPH. These molecules will later be used in the Calvin cycle to help produce sugars. All right. The next part that we're going to look at is going to zoom in on the light reactions here. So if you take one of these thylakoids, and it also kind of looks like a flattened bean, this membrane is the membrane of that flattened bean up here, the thylakoid, where there's the outside of the bean, and then there's the inside of the bean. Okay, in step one, and step one is referring to the actual image here, step one. Sunlight is absorbed by photosystem 2, which contains chlorophyll molecules embedded in the thylakoid membrane. So you see the chlorophyll molecules here in green, here and here. But there'd be many of them. There's just two examples there. The light energy excites electrons in the chlorophyll, causing them to gain energy and move to a higher energy level. So light comes in, there's an electron here in the chlorophyll that's going to gain energy and start moving. Okay, so it has picked up energy from the light. These energized electrons are passed into the electron transport chain. So really this process, so we call this the electron transport chain because we have electrons that are moving and they're going to be doing work as they go. The loss of electrons from chlorophyll means that replacement electrons are needed. So we've just covered step one here. Energy coming in, electrons pick up that energy. With that extra energy, they start moving through this electron transport chain. But we have to replace these electrons now. So we're going to go to step two. Got a bigger picture of that same diagram here. And we see step two down here. And in step two, you'll notice we're talking about water molecules. This is why plants are going to need water, one of the reasons why they're going to need water. And that water they're going to get from the roots, not from the leaves. It's going to be pulled up from the roots. The purpose of this water is to donate some electrons. In step two, water molecules are broken apart in a process called photolysis. This reaction replaces the electrons lost by photosystem 2. So one electron goes, more electrons come in to take its place. When water splits, it produces electrons, hydrogen ions, which is the H+, which you see here, H+, and oxygen gas, O2. The oxygen is released into the atmosphere as a waste product of photosynthesis. So there's our oxygen that is produced by plants. This is just a byproduct. This is a waste product of the plant. And that oxygen can then go out and fill our atmosphere because just about all animals that we think of are going to need oxygen. Really, all animals are going to need oxygen. So we use this oxygen in our in our cell respiration process. But the interesting thing is plants also need oxygen in their cell respiration process. So gives it off as a byproduct of photosynthesis, but it will be used later from the atmosphere by plants for cell respiration. Okay, let's see here. Let's move on. The energized electrons travel through the electron transport chain in the thylakoid membrane. So that's these ones moving here. In step 3, the energy from the moving electrons is used to pump hydrogen ions across the membrane and into the inside of the thylakoid. Okay, so in step 3, we are pumping hydrogen ions across. Now this is going to take energy because we have a higher concentration of those hydrogen ions. That means we have to put energy in to make these go across. If they were going to go the other way, that could happen without energy because it'd be going to a lower concentration. So anyways, some of that energy in the electrons gets used to pump across these hydrogens. Now we're getting a whole bunch of hydrogen ions over here. That's good. This creates a high concentration of hydrogen ions inside the thylakoid membrane. High concentration inside the membrane, right there. Yep. The concentration differences stores potential energy that can later be used to make ATP. So because of a high concentration here, we're going to get these hydrogen ions to do work for us later on, moving through this thing. Okay, so step 4, we see that here. In step 4, the electrons arrive at photosystem 1, where sunlight is absorbed again. So we have another input of sunlight because these electrons gained energy and then they lost some energy going through here. Now they're going to gain energy again and do something else. Also, photosystem 1, you'll notice, is the second one. It's just the order in which they were found. We found photosystem 1 first, and then we found photosystem 2, even though it starts with photosystem 2 and then goes to 1. Doesn't matter. The light energy re-energizes the electrons so they can continue moving through the reaction pathway. In step 5, down here, the energized electrons are transferred to the molecule NADP+. So in step 5, these electrons are now going to be, with some of that extra energy, are going to be attached to this NADP+ and turned into NADPH. So it's also storing some energy here that's going to be used later on in photosynthesis. So that's one little storage for energy. Let's see, when the electrons combine with NADP+ and hydrogen ions, the energy carrying molecule NADPH is formed. So you can kind of think this is as like a little mini storage. I'm not going to say battery exactly, but it's a little mini storage for energy. That was step 5. The buildup of hydrogen ions inside the thylakoid is important for the final step of the light-dependent reactions. Remember, all this takes place in the presence of light, not in the middle of the night when it's dark, only in the presence of sunlight. In step 6, hydrogen ions diffuse through a protein channel called ATP synthase. So remember, high concentration up here of hydrogen ions. They will move to a lower concentration without any energy, no energy input for them to go from high concentration to low. So as they move, they're going to create this ATP molecule. ATP is a little bit, it's a storage space for energy, but it's a little bit more like a battery because it's going to be able to be used directly. So the NADPH is storing energy, the ATP is storing energy. NADPH got energy from the electrons, and the ATP got energy as from the different concentration of hydrogen ions as they put a phosphate and an ADP together to form the ATP. Complicated, but you can follow this stuff. It's doable. All right, let's see. Protein channel synthase. As the ions move through ATP synthase, this thing here, their movement provides the energy needed to combine ADP and a phosphate group, these two things. In step 7, the final step, ATP is produced, giving the plant another energy-rich molecule used during the Calvin cycle. So that stuff is going to now go, ATP and NADPH are going to now go to the they're going to go to the Calvin cycle, which we'll talk about later. Here's the Calvin cycle. We've got ATP and NADPH that were created in the light reactions are going to go over now to the Calvin cycle. All right? That's what we'll detail next. I hope this helps.